Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really plunging into a stack of memories. They come from a very specific place and time, and it's based on source material you, our listener, actually shared with us.
Yeah, it's a book compiling all these shared recollections from people who grew up in this small village in Cumbria. They're often called, sort of affectionately, the Atom Kids.
The Atom Kids, and the event that really shaped everything for them, the one the source says gave birth to every other event,
Was the opening of Calder Hall, right? The world's first industrial-scale nuclear power station.
Exactly. October 17th, 1956. Opened by the Queen herself.
Quite a moment for a small village. Her Majesty the Queen opening a nuclear power station.
It really is. Imagine that image of the Queen arriving in what seems like just an ordinary little place. It kind of captures what we're diving into here, how these huge historical moments mesh with everyday life. So our mission really is to unpack these sources, pull out the key bits of knowledge, the insights, and try to understand what it was really like to live and grow up in Seascale. You know, this community shaped so profoundly by the dawn of the nuclear age.
Consider it your shortcut to getting properly informed about this unique world these memories paint for us.
Definitely.
And Seascale did have history before 56, of course. It was a Victorian seaside spot. Day trippers coming in by train way back in 1869. It saw the Boer Wars, the World Wars.
Right, it wasn't created out of nowhere.
No, but Calder Hall opening, that was the pivot. Absolutely the defining moment for this generation we're hearing from.
Okay, so this nuclear work, it brought massive change, fast. The source points out the scale of it, people arriving, the Atom Men in the late 40s. Apparently, the original Seascalians were outnumbered 2-1.
Yeah, 2-1. That's a huge demographic shift for any village, really. And the sources show it created this distinct atmosphere. Well, straight away, the sound changed. You had all these different regional accents arriving. One person in the source calls them immigrant accents and notes how they maybe tainted the traditional Cumbrian sound in nearby Gosforth. Tainted.
Wow. That's quite a word. But it also sounds like the source gets into the nuances of language and identity.
Oh, definitely.
Right.
It's fascinating. Some newcomers, they picked up the local accent pretty quickly. Others kept their original one, which sometimes caused confusion elsewhere.
Like?
Well, there's a story of someone asking, "Are you from Cumbria?" when they clearly weren't, based on their accent. And another one about a friend from Birmingham who absorbed a Yorkshire accent while up there.
Okay.
Only to go back home and be told they were Torkin posh.
Huh. Right.
But what's really interesting is Seascale itself seemed to develop this sort of standard English accent, but it kept these unique Cumbrian phrases mixed in.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
The source lists some great ones. It's starvation in here, meaning it's really cold.
Starvation.
Or saying, "I don't mind," where you actually mean, "Yes, please."
That could catch you out.
Totally. Or it's all right, meaning it's great, fantastic. And specific words, too, like snack for a door latch.
Snack. Is that different from...
Yeah, the source points out it's different from the Lancashire snick.
Yeah.
Or dike for a hedge. These little words, they flagged up where you were from.
And this mix of accents and language, it fed into the social side of things, too.
Absolutely. It ties right in. The word snobby, for instance, often just meant different. There was that initial us and them feeling, between the established locals and the blow-ins.
The newcomers.
Right. And later, that dynamic kind of shifted. Became more about the Atom Kids themselves versus the pupils from the two private schools there, Calder Girls and the boys' prep school.
Ah, the cabbages.
The very ones, named for their green uniforms. Classic local nicknames.
So you had these layers of us and them.
Exactly. And another layer, something many residents didn't even realize at the time, was house allocation. The source reveals it was based on your job at the factory, your income or status. A-type houses went to senior management.
Wow, really? So your address reflected your rank?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Part of the new social structure the industry brought with it.
Okay, let's move into, the heart of daily life. The village, shops, and landmarks. The book seems full of memories about these places.
Oh, absolutely. And they weren't just shops, were they? They were proper social hubs.
Yeah.
You've got Mrs. Hogg's shop, which then became Mrs. Wrangle's clothes shop. Then Froyle's moved in across the road.
Yeah.
Bateman's Butchers, remembered for the best sausage and tatty pot, apparently.
Sounds good.
And, get this, for smelling exactly the same decades later. There's also a brilliant anecdote about Alan Bateman. Some rather posh WI lady asked for a sheep's head.
Uh-oh.
And his response, just a deadpan, bah, bah.
Perfect local humor.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's finding proper Cumberland mint cake only the Waiberschwait kind, mind you, at Crafty Bob's, and Mrs. Twentyman's grocery shop, later Wrigley's.
What was that like?
Proper old school. Counter service, you had to ask for everything. Edith Twentyman and the Rushton family are remembered there.
These names really bring it to life.
They do. There's mention of the old office opposite the Catholic Church where you paid gas and coal bills. Then it's a workshop now. But the post office, that seems really central.
Oh, yeah. How so?
The source describes it as the lifeline. Contact with the outside world. Seascale's original World Wide Web, one person called it.
Really? The original web?
Yeah, with postcard ads in the window 5 pence a week. And crucially for the kids, it was where you bought sweets. 4 gummy bears for a penny, apparently.
4 for a penny, wow. A proper community hub then.
Totally. Daily errands, social catch-ups, sweets. And the manual telephone exchange was nearby too, opposite the church. Now part of a fishing business workshop. The source mentions party lines as well, getting phones from the post office, and then the handover during privatization in '84.
And the houses themselves, you mentioned allocation, but what were they like?
Well, for many people arriving, these new houses felt like a miracle. They started off this uniform, post-war, grayish-green color.
Oh, very drab.
Yeah, but later they got painted different colors. The source remembers specific streets, like Crofthead Road and Coniston Avenue, having red, green, yellow, dark blue front doors. Much brighter.
A bit more personality.
Exactly. There are even memories of the CED cabins near the garages where the painting was done, right down to the calendars they had pinned up inside.
That's specific.
It is. And then, standing a bit apart, was the romantic house at the end of the village Newton Manor.
Romantic.
Yeah, that's how it's remembered. The source lists owners like Alex Lindsay, someone called Lawrence, just a question mark there, and later Harold and Sheila Floyd. There's even a sweet story about Adele Weber's mum cleaning there and getting a marriage proposal.
No way.
Yep. So it was clearly held in affection, which makes the mention of its sad decay and eventual demolition feel quite poignant.
Yeah, losing places like that changes the feel of a village. Okay, let's shift to school days. Seascale Primary, the 1951 building. The memories sound really vivid, almost sensory.
They really are. The source perfectly captures the smell of the PE hall. You know, old gym shoes, the leather from vaulting horses, the rubber mats.
I can almost smell it, even if I wasn't there.
Exactly. That distinctive school smell.
Yeah.
And the sound of recorder playing in that same hall. Plus all the usual school events photos. The Christmas Eve solo singing at St. Cuthbert's Church.
Did they sing?
Once in Royal David City. And the Shrove Tuesday concert, Sports Day. Standard school stuff, but remembered fondly.
But the swimming pool, that seems less standard and less fondly remembered.
The outdoor pool. Universally recalled as being unbelievably cold.
Chuffing Baltic is the phrase used.
Chuffing Baltic. I like it. Sums it up.
It does. There are stories, maybe slightly tall tales, about having to break the ice before swimming.
Seriously?
Well, maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but it gives you the idea. More concrete are the tales of midnight drunken swims. Apparently, PC Lemon turned up demanding names.
And the source mentions the psychological impact, too. If you couldn't swim or had a note, you had to stand on the side just doing the arm actions. Awkward.
Yeah, that sounds pretty grim.
But despite the cold, it was where lots of kids learned to swim, often through games, trying to get them to put their heads under.
Distraction tactics.
Pretty much. There were efforts to improve it, like a fundraiser in '74 for a pool cover run by someone's nan. It apparently worked for years.
So what happened to it?
Its closure seems a bit unclear in the source. Maybe vandalism, ex-pupils wrecking the cover, or maybe security concerns. It's a bit hazy, which adds this note of, unresolved sadness. But some people still hope a new pool might get built on the old school site eventually.
Now, we can't talk about Seascale Primary without talking about a particular figure, can we? Joey Simpson, Headmaster Ken Simpson.
No, you really can't. And he's probably the most complex figure in the entire book. The memories are just worlds apart.
Yes.
Well, on one hand, you have contributors who described him as genuinely cruel. A bully who instilled fear that lasted a lifetime. They mentioned physical abuse hitting bare bottoms, even smashing a kid's head on a radiator. Making children wet themselves out of fear. Really quite shocking stuff.
Gosh. Shocking.
But then you have other memories that paint a completely different picture. Kindness. Genuine concern. Being a really effective teacher.
Effective how?
Pushing them hard, yeah, but helping lots of kids pass the 11+ exam, which was crucial back then for getting into grammar school, before comprehensives came in.
Right, a big deal.
Huge. So you get these contrasting anecdotes. There's the story about him having a lisp and mispronouncing Lori as Lori, docking house points, but also stories of him showing compassion after an accident.
So tough but fair in some eyes.
Maybe. And then there's a collective amusement years later when someone spotted him wearing this really awful toupee. And the legendary last day of term pranks.
Wow, yes.
Putting sugar in his petrol tank, potatoes up his exhaust pipe. Classic schoolboy revenge, maybe.
It sounds like it. So these wildly different views of the same man.
It really says something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About how different kids experienced him, maybe based on their own personalities or specific interactions, or just how they look back on it now. He clearly left a massive, if very complicated, mark.
Yeah. And the source contrasts him with other teachers who seem remembered more consistently.
Yes, people like Mrs. Schofield, good. Mr. Telford, preferred by some. Mrs. Robson, got the best out of pupils. Mr. Dredge, top man. And Mrs. Worsnop, scary smile but a coach. More straightforwardly positive memories, it seems.
The school also had that competitive house system, right? Red, green, blue teams.
Yep. Fostered a real competitive spirit. Points for everything, academics, sports, whether it was in that freezing pool or on the running track.
And the chants.
Oh, the chants. Green's the greatest team. Reds with their beds, and blues always loose. Classic.
Brilliant.
The source recalls tiny details, too, like getting just 1 point for coming third in the obstacle race, or someone getting 102 points for walking on their hands. They got to mention in assembly.
102 points. Must have been impressive hand walking.
Must have been. And the teachers were house captains. Mrs. Worsnop for red, Mr. Jones for blue. Green seems to have been Mrs. Drummond, Mrs. Harrison, or Mr. Robinson at different times.
Yeah.
There was even a special card for the trophy if it was a draw.
They took it seriously. And then secondary school, Wyndham.
Briefly mentioned, yeah, seen as posh by outsiders. Apparently, it was only the second purpose-built comprehensive in the whole UK. For some kids coming from Seascale Primary, it was a big culture shock.
Right. Okay, moving away from school. Leisure, social life. What did kids do? Where did people hang out?
Well, the beach huts feature quite strongly. Some families practically use them as second homes. They were leased from Milham Council.
Sounds idyllic.
It does, but there's sadness too. They fell into disrepair, suffered vandalism, someone tried to burn one down. Eventually they were taken down.
Oh, shame.
Yeah. And there's really poignant detail. One contributor mentions their mother's ashes being buried under the spot where her hut used to stand.
Wow, that's,
yeah,
powerful connection.
It is. People remember specific huts, too. One had a GP-14 sailing dinghy in it, belonged to Mr. Burnett, the prep school head, or maybe the Thomas family. Another remembers a blue one that belonged to their nan and granddad.
And kids being kids on the beach.
Oh, yes. The source includes Abe Weber's memory of burying a friend vertically in a sand dune.
Vertically?
Yep, up to his neck, presumably, and then just leaving him there while they went for lunch.
Oh, my goodness. You wouldn't get away with that now.
Probably not. There's a hope maybe the huts could come back, though someone jokes they'd need wifey these days.
Haha, true. What else? Pony Club.
Yep, another thread. Run by Commander Falcon Stewart, who generously let them use his land at Newton Manor for free.
The romantic house.
That's the one. Memories of Pony Club camp and the billiard room, sneaking out, eating meals at this amazing 17th century cherry wood table with Falcon Stewart crested silverware.
Fancy.
Apparently. Though the kids dared each other to throw the knives in the bushes.
Okay.
And scrumping apples from the commander's orchard, only for him to turn up later at the house with a basket of apples for them.
That's lovely. He sounds like quite a character.
Distinguished war record, known for his kindness, gave someone petrol once when they ran out. Which again makes the sadness about Newton Manor's decay and eventual demolition for development really hit home, losing these figures in places.
Definitely. What about the golf club?
Mentioned as being members only initially, for the super posh, as the source puts it.
Super posh.
It was the place everyone gathered to watch the first color TV broadcast around 1970. Horse racing, apparently. But junior members weren't allowed in the bar.
Sign of the times.
And there's a great memory of cycling bikes over the greens and steep fairways during the big snow in 1982.
Sounds fun, if maybe not allowed.
Probably not. And a really specific local detail, the rubber paths near the tees. They were made from old conveyor belts from the Florence iron ore mine in Egremont.
Wow, recycling. Okay, tennis.
Initially just to the private schools. The public courts came later, about a decade on. Part of the facility is sponsored by the nuclear industry for the workers.
Ah, fringe benefits.
Sort of. Though apparently, the prep school boys would chase other kids off their courts. And the source notes the very first village swimming pool, before the school one, was actually next to the church hall tennis court.
Little bits of forgotten history. And main social spots. Pubs, clubs.
The Scoffle Hotel looms large. It even gets a chapter title. Down your local and up your boozer. Consistently remembered with huge affection and real sadness that it's gone.
What was it used for?
Everything.
Huh.
Parties, learning silver service waitressing, dinner dances, ballroom dancing lessons. It had the Viking bar, tales of after-hours lock-ins in the residence bar. Its history went way back, 1760s for the front part.
And it's gone now.
Demolished. Some of the stone was used for the village notice board base and at Earton Hall. But some contributors feel its demolition ruined a really special part of Seascale's history.
Yeah, you can understand that. Any other hubs?
The Windscale Club. That was another key spot. Site of a right good knees up after the Queen's coronation. Had a dartboard in the snug. Place to listen to music. You had to be a member initially to get in.
Right. And dancing seems to pop up again.
Mrs. Wrangle's ballroom dancing school in the 60s. Muriel's dancing school. Kids earn certificates and medals. Seems quite formal.
It does. What about more informal stuff? Just playing?
Playing in old farm buildings in the 50s. The 62 Club. The Village Amateur Dramatics Group. Doing reviews and plays. Village fetes. Scout activities.
Riding.
Riding from Olwen Fawcett's riding school comes up, remembering pony names like Pansy and Monty. Even pretending trees were ponies. And the very practical memory of collecting horse manure off Gosforth Road for people's gardens.
Resourceful.
There's exploring a lane, telling ghost stories near the old mill in the late 70s, teenage dances, rivalries with gangs from Egremont, local bands like the Titans and the Meteors, who were apparently the same band, just renamed.
Keeping it interesting.
And even rumors about Radio Caroline, the pirate station. Did they stop off Seascale for medical help? Did a DJ fail to turn up for a gala because he picked up a girl? Village gossip.
I love it. So you have this rich everyday life, but then these big moments puncture it, don't they? Major events, visitors.
Absolutely. And none bigger than the Queen's visit in 1956 to open Calder Hall.
The pivotal moment.
Exactly. The source captures the buzz, the crowds, people spotting the royal train at Ravenglass or maybe from the beach, seeing the Queen's car speeding up Gosforth Road.
Any specific anecdotes?
A few. The wind apparently blew the Queen's skirt up, but she handled it calmly. Someone's mother remembers holding the Queen's coat. And there's an alleged story, maybe apocryphal, about her equerry being initially refused service at the Pennington Arms Hotel after closing time, before they realized who he was.
Oh, dear. Hope that got sorted.
Presumably. And her words at the opening were recorded. "It is with great pride that I now open Calder Hall, Britain's first atomic power station." Really cemented the village's place in history.
And then, just months later, very different visitors from the USSR.
Yes, quite controversial figures at the time. Malenkov, the foreign minister, visited back in 1949, stayed at the Scoffel Hotel. One contributor, Keith Turner, remembers being the first kid to approach him and his bodyguards on the beach, and actually got his autograph.
Wow, brave kid.
Then in 1956, Bulganin and Khrushchev visited Sellafield, again staying at the Scoffel. Kids remember seeing them walking outside the hotel. Apparently, Cossack hats became trendy for a bit afterwards.
Local fashion trend.
There's a story, maybe just a rumor, about Khrushchev sitting on the beach chatting to kids, and another about Jason Rushworth's dad as a young boy aiming a toy cap gun at Khrushchev's car as it drove up Gosforth Road.
Oh, my word. Probably wouldn't try that today.
Definitely not. The source mentions the possibility that they had two future Soviet leaders visiting at once. It's important to stress we're relaying the memories as shared in the source, capturing that local perspective on these extraordinary global figures turning up.
Understood. And Enoch Powell visited too.
Yes. During the 66 general election campaign, spoke at St. Cuthbert's Hall. Interestingly, he didn't stay at the Scoffel, but at a private house. And the source notes that even now, nobody seems to know which family hosted him. Little local mystery. Again, just reporting what's in the book here about these visits.
Then, a year after the Queen's visit, a very different kind of major event. The Windscale fire in 1957.
Yeah, a huge incident. And the memories from the village, from the families and kids, are really chilling.
What do they recall?
Being told urgently, stay inside, shut all the windows. Mothers obsessively cleaning window cells. Milk from local farms being tested.
Yeah.
Poured away anyway, just in case. No fresh milk for months.
That must have been frightening.
Deeply. Some kids were sent away to stay with relatives elsewhere. People remember having to wear Wellington boots just to go outside for weeks afterwards. Seeing planes overhead, newspaper photographers trying to get pictures.
And the fathers working at the plant?
Some didn't come home for a day or two, busy dealing with the incident on site. There was real fear. The source mentions people thinking the whole of West Cumberland would have been blown up.
Which wasn't the reality.
No. The source contrasts that fear with the reality, praising the leadership of people like Tom Brooks on site and stating it wouldn't have actually blown up. It highlights the firemen as the real heroes, both during the fire and in the cleanup afterwards. There's also memory of mothers rushing to school to collect their kids without telling the staff first, adding to that sense of panic.
A really defining, scary moment for the community.
Absolutely. And the book also acknowledges a much later tragedy in his dedication to the shootings in 2010.
Right.
It's mentioned to keep the victims' names alive, but also to highlight the community's response. Neighbors quickly warning each other to stay indoors. There are present-day reminders on the beach, a memorial seat for Mike Pike, a plaque on a play castle. The source also notes Border Television's role, covering it for Sky News.
A reminder of resilience, but also deep sadness.
And it mentions Bono's anti-nuclear protest on the beach years earlier, too. Another example of the outside world impacting Seascale.
Okay, finally, let's touch on getting around. Transport. Trains seem important early on.
Very. Brought the first day trippers, then became crucial for getting kids to school. These old horse boxes style carriages, apparently, with older kids looking out for the younger ones.
Sounds quite quaint.
That era ended in 1968, though, when Millam Iron Works closed. But people still remember seeing the Royal train whiz past sometimes. And one contributor has this specific memory of a train always sitting in the bay platform at Seascale Station, but he never once saw it used.
Strange.
When the school train stopped, double-decker buses arrived, which brought their own memories, some scary, some happy. Eating your cookery homework on the way home, tying people's hoodstrings to the seatbacks.
Bus mischief.
And the bus stop cave gets a specific mention, too.
A cave?
Presumably just a shelter, but remembered as a cave. The source also touches on longer journeys, those epic overnight coach trips to London or train journeys down to Gatwick. Just reflecting on how travel has changed, routes and costs.
And just the basic walk to school.
Could be tough, especially for kids from places like Santon Way, Hull Center Road, the Banks. The source describes walks in horrible weather rain coming in sideways, snow filling your wellies. Builds character, I suppose.
Or just gives you cold feet.
Probably both. Contrasted with the lucky few who sometimes got a lift.
So pulling all these threads together, what kind of picture emerges? What's the core identity here?
Well, there's that nickname. Brainiest town in Britain.
Ah, yes, because of all the scientists and engineers.
Exactly. That influx of PhDs and skilled workers. The headline claimed, every third door had a PhD behind it, or so the headline went. The source even has a photo of the mighty atom men, these engineering pioneers like Tom Towey, CBE.
So a high concentration of brain power.
Definitely. And that influx, combined with all these shared experiences, the good and the bad, seems to have forged a really strong community spirit. People talk about Seascalians rallying around each other when things get tough, like during the 2010 shootings.
A sense of looking out for each other.
Yeah. And a respect for the past, too. You see it in the tradition of memorial seats for people and institutions. The source actually contrasts how well looked after seats are in Seascale compared to perceived vandalism down south. There's real sadness expressed when local memorial benches are damaged.
That speaks volumes.
It really does. And the power of sharing these memories is, well, it's the whole point of the book, isn't it? As the source puts it so well right at the end. A village truly is the sum of its memories.
It really is. And this collection gives us such a feel for what made Seascale Seascale. Those little details only locals would get.
Like Hartley's ice cream van, always tooting exactly 5 times.
Exactly. Or knowing that Big Ben wasn't the clock tower, it was a specific rock on the beach. And Marble Arch was the underpass.
Or that going up the Scawfell meant popping to the hotel, not climbing the mountain.
These things create that shared culture, that identity.
They do. And there's a really poignant reflection included from Tim Hollier, who sadly passed away while the book was being put together. His father ran the estate office.
Oh, what did he say?
He summed up his childhood beautifully, mentioning the Wendy House, folk songs, Cubs, Scouts, the trains, parties, naming key figures like teachers, the vicar, the police, Cub leaders, even the scary ones. And he stressed the lasting importance of the friendships, the community feel, and the rules and manners they all learned growing up there.
That sounds like a lovely summary.
It is. And he made this observation that the more things change in Seascale, the more they stay the same, which feels like a really insightful takeaway.
Yeah. He also mentioned outsiders, didn't he? Like protesters.
Yes, he contrasted the lived experience with, say, a Green Party spokesperson who'd only ever visited the village to protest. The idea that outsiders looking only at the nuclear plant could never really get what the community itself was actually like.
That gap between internal reality and external perception.
Exactly. A complex identity shaped by the huge, world-changing industry next door, but also by all the small, everyday human things.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, we've really journeyed through this remarkable mix of experiences, haven't we? Growing up beside the world's first industrial nuclear power station.
Yeah. We've seen those strong community bonds, the specific local culture, the unique humor, those challenging character-building school days, including unforgettable, complex figures like Joey Simpson.
And just the sheer texture of everyday life lived out against this backdrop of major historical events and these incredible international visitors turning up on their doorstep.
Looking at Seascale through these memories, it really gives you this microcosm, doesn't it? How huge historical forces land in a local place and shape lives. How sharing experiences, even the tough ones like the Windscale fire, those conflicting memories of people, builds this incredibly strong sense of identity.
A resilient community.
Definitely. One that lasts across generations.
Tim Hollier's reflection, the one you mentioned, he talked about the untold stories, the official secrets acts, existing alongside all these shared everyday memories.
Yes, that juxtaposition.
It leaves us with a question, doesn't it? How does living through history like that, history that might even involve state secrets, actually shape a place's collective memory, especially when compared to how outsiders, maybe only focus on the nuclear aspect, see it?
What is the power of those shared memories, the difficult ones included, in creating that enduring community spirit? It's a deep question.
Maybe, just maybe, the simplest answer is the best one. That line the book ends on.
A village truly is the sum of its memories.